Give me 1 second. Ya estamos. Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos. Este día lunes, comenzando la semana. Tenemos un tremendo invitado hoy día que nos va a hablar sobre es como cómo ser maestros en nuestro pitch, ¿cierto? Al momento de mostrarle nuestro emprendimiento a inversores de riesgo. Él es parte del equipo de Agora. Ya nos va a conversar un poco sobre su experiencia, quién es él. Ha estado relacionado con YCombinator y con muchas otras fondos de inversiones bien emblemáticos. Así que, y perdón, además por el retraso, ¿cierto? Teníamos unos problemas técnicos. Como ven, hoy día estamos fuera de Sub. Nos fuimos a otro sistema un poquito más amigable para hacer transmisiones online. Si tienen amigos o conocidos que quieran invitarlos a esta presentación, solamente compartan el link de YouTube o de LinkedIn en donde estén ahora mirándolo y van a poder verlo sin ningún problema. Así que, sin más preámbulo, esta sesión va a ser en inglés, para que sepan, vamos a switchar ahora a inglés y vamos a conocer a Todd. So Todd, welcome and thank you for your time. Welcome to our community. It's called Impacta VC. It's a Chilean venture capital that we invest in Latin American companies with impact, and that's our thesis. If you don't have any impact, we are not interested on your startup. We can help you also with the ecosystem, but we are very, very impact driven investors. I cannot see your screen, so if you can share again your screen, I can put it in the video. Okay, cool. So Todd, first of all, can you tell us a little about you so we can know you better, and then we can start with the presentation, please.
Well, it's actually the beginning of my presentation is to introduce myself so people
Cool.
know
So
me
let's
better.
go. Yeah. So that we can see you. We can see your screen. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be here. My name is Todd Embley. I am the startup program director at Agora. We'll get into a little bit about that maybe at the end for those where it would matter. Agora is a software as a service company, went public in June of 2020 on the NASDAQ, raised about $350 million. We are the engine behind real-time voice, real-time video, live streaming, watch parties, anything that is live, human to human. That's the stuff that we power. If anybody has used Clubhouse in the past or anything like that, you have probably used Agora without knowing it, because again, we are a white label software as a service API SDK company sitting in the background. My background, go back to, let's say, 2007, I had gone to China and I met my wife, who is from Russia. So that's a whole thing right now, of course. But we ended up deciding to stay in China and make a go of it there, because as a lot of you know, that's when the iPhone came out and smartphones came out, and we were witnessing 1 billion people get on the internet within about 4 or 5 years. Through smartphones in China. So it was a pretty crazy time. It was a lot of fun to be there. I joined SOSV back in 2010 as an entrepreneur in residence when we were starting up the very first venture-backed accelerator in all of Asia. Innovation Works came out about 6 months later with Kai-Fu Lee, for those of you who know China well. We grew, we did more accelerators. We did the hardware accelerator in Shenzhen called HAX. We started investing into things like independent biology through IndieBio. We did food through FoodX. We did MOX, which was our mobile-only accelerator out of Taiwan. We had a bunch of failed attempts at accelerators. We ourselves, even as a VC, we're pivoting and trialing new types of accelerators. We We did one in partnership with Leap Motion, which was called our Leap Accelerator, the gesture control technology for controlling your computer, really designed around trying to get developers developing on the platform. We did something called Maker TV. Maker TV was actually helping people who wanted to create new TV shows, kind of write and cast and shoot a pilot and then pitch to networks new TV shows. And as we can see, there's so many streaming services all over the place. And it's the same. It's always the same in every industry. Startups can now get into the TV industry, right? Why not? Why couldn't you? It's out there. It's available now. Trying to help them do that. Ran into some issues. It wasn't going that well. That was the time we were too early. We were way too early. We were doing this in about 2014, far too early to be doing. Now, if you were to do this, I think it would actually work pretty well. But this is, the big picture of me on the left. That's Chinaccelerator. I took over in 2012, moved it down to Shanghai, spent a total of 8 years in China, left in 2016. I went over to the Valley, to Silicon Valley. Down there on the left, I had Dave McClure and his crazy hat. He's the founder of 500 Startups. I had him come and speak at our space down there. Had an opportunity to meet Brad Feld, who's a bit of a hero of mine. I love Brad Feld from Foundry Group, one of the creators of TechStars. And I've had a lot of opportunities to pitch and speak around the world. I was kind of the China guy for a while. Going around to conferences talking about what was going on in China. So it's been a fun ride. I moved back to Canada in 2017. I was the director of Founder Institute Western Canada for a couple of years. Very different style of program, again, which was fun. When I was in the Valley, I was doing corporate innovation, running a co-working space with about 250 seats. Had fun doing that. That's a tough business, though. I wouldn't recommend jumping into that one. And then a buddy of mine who ran the startup program for SendGrid and then Twilio via the acquisition of SendGrid. He was leaving and coming over to this company that just IPO'd and wanted to start a startup program and asked me if I wanted to join him. I'm more of a people first type person, and a chance to work with him I thought was going to be great. So I joined him and off we went. And that's what I've been doing. He recently left to go do startup stuff again. So I've taken over as the director of the program. So to the workshop, why everybody's here, and the why. This is going to help you in a number of ways. It's going to help you communicate what you do to stakeholders who aren't in the business, aka our parents, our partners, our children, our grandparents, any of those kinds of people. It's going to help us communicate what we do to potential talents that may want to join the team and why they should join. And obviously, it's going to help us communicate this to investors to raise money to be able to scale and grow. This is also going to help you understand what it is that you do, because I would bet a lot of money that that all of us think that we know exactly what we do, but do we understand exactly what it is that we do, and do we understand what other people think that we do? Generally, there's a practice or a kind of a workshop called the Johari Window, and it's part of us and what we think we do, our customers and what they think we do, and then there's what we actually do. And we are always trying to triangulate those three things. The more accurately you're able to communicate what it is that you do and why anybody should care, the better you're going to be able to exactly find out what that is, and the more quickly you're going to be able to find out what that is. Now, when you're pitching, and full disclosure, actually, I should probably preface this whole thing. This is pitching to VCs, for if you're early stage, if you're seed Series A, this is for you. And this is a presentation that is aimed when you have an audience. So you're on stage or you're in a big room, and you have an angel group, or you have a lot of VCs, or you're doing, TechCrunch Disrupt, or the demo days, through this program. any of that kind of, this is an audience centric, but you're pitching to VCs. You always want to be talking to VCs. They're the most difficult audience to penetrate and to get to understand. So that's what this is set up as. The other disclaimer is this is my opinion. Okay, this, don't take this as the all-knowing only advice you'll ever get. I think any mentor or somebody who's advising you who speaks in absolutes, that's a big red flag. We have but just our opinion and one set of shoes that we've walked through this life with. So I wouldn't go changing everything about what it is that you do, but I want to try to give you at least enough inspiring things throughout this presentation, so that it does help you go back and revisit some things so that you are able to communicate what it is that you do better. There's nothing worse than putting so much hard work into your startup and not really knowing how to communicate it that people get it. I think we've probably all struggled. You've all struggled with trying to communicate what you do, and it's frustrating because you care about it so much and you really don't understand how other people don't get what it is that you do, and round we go. So try to get out of that. This is the only reason, right? This is the only this is the only reason that we're here. This is the only reason that we're presenting, is that we're trying to get a meeting. We're trying to build a relationship. Just please remember that is the most important thing. Raising money takes time. Okay, it takes months, minimum 3 months, up to 6 months, if not even longer. It's a long journey. Okay, and the fun thing here is that they're a VC and you're a startup. Your job is sometimes to raise money, but overall, it's to build a business. It's to build a company. That is your goal. A VC's job is to invest money every day. That's it. That's the only one. To make money, really, I guess you could say. But they have to invest other people's money. That's their job. So you don't have to go there. If you are interesting enough, if they want to have a relationship with you enough, they will eventually ask you, would you like to go out? Would you like to have a date? Like, can I invest some money? They will open that door for you. Build a relationship, focus on building the relationship. Don't make it about the money. They will bring that up because it's more important to them to broach the topic of money than it is for you. Your job is to build a business. Yes, everything I just said, apply it to this slide. So book recommendation one, I've got a few of these throughout the presentation. I think this one is fantastic. It really dives into the psychology of the pitch, and helps us realize that we shouldn't be always rationally trying to go through the front door of a person's brain and get to their opinions through the frontal cortex. There's a reason there's this big bone at the front of our head, and it's impossible to penetrate. How you actually get in is through what Oren calls in the book the croc brain, right? So it's about going through the back door. We want to be appealing to how they feel. We want to drive them emotionally. If we can't get them to emotionally buy in, then it's going to be really, really hard, right? So as we're presenting our pitch, don't ask yourself what will they think. Ask yourself what will they feel. Okay? We've all maybe experienced being on the car lot. We want to buy a new car. We're going to look at cars. We're standing on the car lot, and then you see this guy come out of the building in a cheap suit, bright smile, and walking briskly towards us. And we know what he's going to do. And we're like, shields up, ready, here we go. Everybody be quiet. I will do the talking. Let's get ready. And you get into defense mode. And that's kind of what everybody's brain is doing. Everybody knows they're being sold. Everybody in that audience, in that arena, that's why they're there. They're being sold. So they have their defenses up 100% at the beginning. Don't try to defeat that. Don't worry about that. Just tell them a story. Tell them a story about a young person or an old person or a single mom who's going through some stuff and what they're doing, or a state of the world and whatnot. And just worry about that. We'll get into some stuff later, but we're going to start talking about the problem. I also don't want you to forget it's a show. Okay. Everybody has to, in some small part, has to be an actor. or an actress, okay? Like it's not just what you're saying, but it's how you say it. It's how important you believe it to be. This is why practice is so, so important, okay? So the passion you have and how firmly you believe in this is going to be very important. I would also say, don't be overly passionate. You have to realize that as there's a fine line, even for whatever you're doing, and you're all doing different things, but there's a certain amount of passion that should come through, and then too much passion is a red flag, because you'll be blinded to what the market or the community or the economic conditions are telling you. You have to be passionate, but be passionate about the impassionate chasing of data, right? The impassionate chasing of understanding your customers or your clients, right? You have to be passionate, but you also have to have the right amount of passion, because you are building a business as much as you are going to be saving the world. Um, this this is a pro tip. This is something that I use right at the very beginning to understand who I'm dealing with. Am I dealing with a professional? Or am I dealing with an amateur? Amateurs come out and say, "Hi, my name is Todd Embley, and I am the CEO of this, and this company." And to an investor, nobody cares. None of that matters. It's it's innocuous information. I want you to get to the point. Like I'm ready for the story. I'm ready to be sold. I'm ready to be pulled into this amazing new thing. Bring it for me. And who you are, the title you gave yourself, the name of your company that you gave it, none of that actually matters to me in making a business decision of caring about you and your company at all. So let's realize that. Let's dispense with the pleasantries. Let's respect their time and where they're at and how many thousands of pitches they usually hear, and just get into it. The first things out of your mouth after you've taken a pause to let the audience quiet down is just, did you know that 84 million bottles end up in, however you're going to go, get to it. Just get to it. We'll tell them who we are later, and we'll tell them what our company is later. But right now, that's not what they're here. That's not what they're going to care about. Let's understand that. Oh yeah. Again, everything that I just said is on here. I'm happy to share this deck, by the way. You guys will be able to obviously revisit this, and I'm happy to share the deck as well if that's helpful. I can send this across. Okay. But yes, everything I just said. Using this platform, I don't get to see my next slide, so sometimes I'm a little out of cadence. Again, my job isn't to make and deliver presentations, so uh, but this one, I hope that it's working out well despite that. Um, the attention span. That's the other thing, is understanding and putting yourself in the shoes of the listener. There's a million things. The monkey brain, right? The monkey brain is constantly trying to tear our attention into a million different ways, right? Hence, for those of you who have ADHD, you know exactly what I mean. Um, our phone is buzzing in our pocket. We just remembered that we've got to pick up milk on the way home. And didn't I recognize that guy in the front row from this thing I was at before? Whatever. We're constantly like, your job, get all of their attention on you, get it as high as possible, and then hold on to it and never let that attention go for as long as possible. That's your job. That's what you need to be doing with this presentation. And that's why we don't start with our name and the company name and the title we gave ourselves. All right. The problem. Um, the problem is, to me, the most important thing. And it's not just what the problem is, right? Because you can Google a lot of things, and so can I. So if you're talking and you're presenting things that anybody can Google, ask yourself why. Okay. Um, it's not just enough to be bringing just stuff that anybody can know about, okay? It's about how you read the data. It's about why you think this is important or why you think this is still a problem. I'll get into that in a sec. Um, I also want you to recognize that investors, again, receive thousands of pitches. They have examined just about every vertical a little bit, and they've examined most verticals a lot. And then they're going to be experts in a few. That means that our mind is racing out in front of you as you present. Okay. As soon as you start talking about a problem, there's 10 things that jump into our head. We start thinking about competition. We start talking about barriers to entry, costs involved, hiring, market factors, pricing, go to market strategies, um, how much you need to raise to be relevant. The last three companies that I invested in this space that all failed, and now I'm like another one. Um, there's a lot of things that can be going on. So, what I'm really encouraging you to do is to sit in here just for a few minutes and show them how you're different. Okay. So sit in the problem. Yeah, that's a cat in a kitty litter box. Um, I want you to have and understand something very important. They are evaluating you as an entrepreneur, not even just as an entrepreneur. They're evaluating you. If I give this person money today, will they give me, if I give them $1 today, will they give me $10 back? Can they do that? Do I trust this person to know how to do that, given everything that we have to go through? Um, and why would it be this person instead of somebody else? They are constantly evaluating you. The team, meaning the people, meaning the humans, and humans are fallible. We're big sacks of water, can get destroyed by a bus at any moment. We're the biggest problem. We're the biggest risk. Um, and so you need to try to work your way around that as an issue. Um, and one of the ways that you can do that as they're evaluating you up and down is have a really unique causality thesis. Don't just state a problem and present a bunch of data that backs up why this is a problem worth solving because Google told me so. You have to take that all and you have to evaluate the problem from a different perspective. You have to be unique. And it's not just what the problem is today. You also have to present how we got here and tell that story and tell that tale. You have to go back and tell the story of the hero, but show them, okay, let's go back to when they were a little kid and how we got to today. You see a lot of movies do that. They'll be in the now and then everything stops and they're going, you're probably wondering what's going on right now. But in order to do that, I need to take you back 10 years. And they all go back. That's kind of what we're doing. And the way that you see how everything happened, but you see it uniquely, right? You're different. You're already demonstrating that you are a different entrepreneur, right? So given this set of data, if anybody else looked at the last 10 years of this industry, they would see this. And that's the problem. And that's why it's still a problem, is because everybody looks at it that way. And I'm telling you, the way that they're looking at it is wrong. This is the way that we look at it. And you are 2 degrees, 3 degrees separated in how you see this problem. And only people who understand a problem differently can create solutions that are different. And if you're not different, you're not going to raise money, because VC economics requires differentiation. That's why they want to invest in the people who are slightly a little bit crazy, slightly a little bit outside the norm. Because if anybody has it, because they have a better chance of winning. Because if you're not first, you're last. To quote, what was it? Will Ferrell from that movie. Moving on. Um, Once you have demonstrated a problem and that the problem does need solving, and you see how the problem came to be and where it's going in a very unique way, now we have to talk about and we have to demonstrate that we really understand who are we targeting? Who is this problem? Who suffers from the problem? Why are they suffering from the problem more than other people? And how much does it hurt? Meaning, are we quantifying the pain in a way that matters. Especially like dollars is great. If you can quantify the pain in dollars, that's amazing. Um, Sometimes it's going to be lost crops, right? Sometimes it's going to be employee turnover. Sometimes it's going to be um, just efficiency in agricultural production. Whatever it is, you have to be able to quantify. So, who, why is it for that person, and how much does it hurt? That is going to tell us everything about our capacity to be able to build a business. We're demonstrating that because if you tell me who it hurts and why it hurts them, I already know how many of them there are and how much we're going to like that the TAM, right? I am already going to understand our ability to get a certain share of those people into what we're doing and how difficult that's going to be and how much it's going to cost of my money for us to be able to acquire them. How much it hurts, that's almost talking about our LTV versus cost of customer acquisition algorithm, right? How much it hurts, well, that means how much they'll pay. And so we can already start to understand that through these slides. Now, notice we have not started talking about solution yet. We have not started talking about solution. Book recommendation. A lot of the things that I was just talking about, you actually learn about in this book. This is Ben Horowitz. A lot about his early time with Mark Andreessen, building Netscape and going on and building software companies. And what's really, really hard about that, this has amazing stuff in it. It's not one that I would say you have to read first. I think it's maybe one you just kind of keep around and read when you can because it's thoroughly enjoyable. Reads like a novel. But I recommend you read Pitch Anything before this, and then the next book I'm going to read is pretty much the Fundraising Bible. But we'll get to that later. Okay, so remembering we haven't talked about the solution yet, and we're still not talking about the solution. There's a good reason why. And I don't know how many of you are going to be able to do this, but if you can get this far and not talk about the solution, that's amazing because then it proves that you don't have any ego attached to the solution. And not having an ego attached to the solution is incredibly important to building what's right and what the market wants, when they want it, how much they're willing to pay for it, which are the things that we are constantly trying to figure out. If you can build something people want and are willing to pay for, you have a business. If you are building something that you think people want and that you think people will pay for, you are not going to have a business. Build what they want, give it to them how they want it, and charge them how much they're willing to pay. You are going to build a business. If you don't know what that is, then everything is an experiment to learn what that is. But do not be building if you don't know, if your market hasn't told you that they want it, or at least some iteration of it. But first of all, if I'm gonna give you money for you to run all those experiments day after day, week after week, if you're asking me to fund that laboratory, if you're coming to say, I think I can make a vaccine for this virus, and I need funding for my laboratory. Okay, well, we obviously don't know what the vaccine is. So it's ludicrous to present any kind of vaccine without knowing what it is. Meaning, if you haven't solved this problem for any meaningful amount of people, please don't talk about your solution as if it's going to, because it's BS. You haven't solved anything. It's not a solution. It's an idea that you think based on hopefully some relevant data. But if people aren't using it and paying for it, then well, it's just an idea that we think is pretty good. That's it. You are trying to raise money to fund that laboratory, and it's good. Whether you get money is going to be based on a couple of things. One, your process. Okay, so if we fund the laboratory and all the materials and all the equipment, what is the process that you're going to go through in order to keep iterating, collecting data, building a new experiment, and then running that experiment? The other thing is, who are the scientists? Who are the researchers? That's the most important thing. Who's on the team? We know we don't know what the solution is yet, but if we have the right team and the right process, we'll be able to go find it. And then once we find it, then we just need to be able to sell it. But we need to have the right team. We need to have the right researchers and experimenters. So that's where this comes in. Super important. Now, past that, also why now? So I told you a little bit about being too early with one of the accelerators that we tried to build. This happens all the time. And at this point, most investors have a lot of failed portfolio companies, portfolio investments that were either too early or too late. And it is becoming more and more important. And that has been becoming more and more important for the last 2 decades of getting the timing right and not being too early and not being too late. So it is very, very important that you demonstrate why now is the right time. The right time to what? Well, depending on what you're doing, it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to be relevant to the market. So if it's going to take you at least, let's say, 3 years to really have built product, iterated, debugged, got your models right, and been able to really get out there and get in front of a lot of people using, and now you're getting into the market, then presenting why now, as in today, we need a solution, then you're too late because it's going to take you 3 years to get to where you're relevant. And if today's the time that it's necessary, then you are already behind by 3 years. If it's going to take you 3 years to be relevant, then why now is why start a 3-year process today? Because, and this is the key, in 3 years, all these forces and factors are going to come together to create the perfect storm or the perfect time for us to be there, and we're going to be ready. But we need to start today. And then in 3 years, in 5 years, as things change, consumer tastes and behaviors, economic changes, technology changes, political government changes, all of these things are moving, right? And you've laid out this shifting landscape and you know where things are moving because we did the now and the before. So then we can extrapolate and project into the future. We've created this landscape, this moving shape. And you're saying, if I've plotted these things correctly and I know where things are basically going, and you respect at least my thesis, then if we start building something today, in 3 years, we should be ready to take advantage because it's going to be the perfect time to be relevant in the market, right? We have a thing in Canada. I'm Canadian, live in West Canada. Wayne Gretzky says, don't go where the puck is, go where the puck is going to be. Because by the time I start skating and get to where the puck is right now, that puck's gone. It's already on the other side of the rink, on the ice, whatever. It's what we call it. So you have to understand all the forces that are impacting what's happening today, predict where you think it's all going to be in 3 to 5 years, and head that way. Don't try to convince somebody of what's going on now and that you're going to go there, because it's going to take you 3 years and everybody's going to beat you to the party. All right, enough about that. Hey, the solution is the thing everybody loves to talk about the most, right? This is what I think. This is what I've built. This is what we've done, right? Uh-oh. Something just changed. Oh, this is cool. It's a different layout. This is not the most important thing. And what it is that you built doesn't actually matter. Why you built it, what you've learned from it, and what you're going to build next. This is what's important here. You should be talking about your solution as this was the best thing that we could build now to help us collect the maximum, most important data to tell us what to build next. That's what it is. It is a data collection machine. It is the best data collection machine that we could have built right now, because this is what we learned. This is what we know. This is what it showed us that we still need to go get. And so that's why we decided to design the next iteration to be this, so that we can go and get that. And we continue to rinse and repeat this process. Okay. That's really, really, really build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn. Please don't talk about your solution as if it's going to be the one that wins, as if it's going to be the one that's important, that people are going to use ubiquitously and pay thousands of dollars for forever. No. Be humble enough to realize that whatever you've built today is going to be wrong, and that's the only thing we actually know about it. Market opportunity. Um, this one's a little bit interesting. I don't love always the tam sam tom. Okay, never my favorite slides. It's just a bunch of big numbers that really don't mean a lot. Um, I think most investors can already probably predict, like, if you're doing an education company, yeah, education, it's a big market. Don't come in and tell me that it's $107 billion market. I know that it's big. Um, doesn't move the needle for me, right? And what it is, I'll take away half a point from you as a founder from actually presenting it to me as if it should matter to me. I believe that if I'm gonna have to listen to everything you say, that you have thought about every single thing you're saying and decided whether you think it's important for me to know that or not. And if you're telling me stuff that I'm like, why would you be telling me that? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Why did you think that I would care about that? That's interesting that you were naive enough to think that I would care about that. And then around we go. Um, I think the market opportunity, you just have to understand VC economics 101. Okay. And it depends how much money you're taking from them. It depends how big their original fund was. But you have to say, like, VC funds typically are set up on a 10-year timeline. 2% per year goes away in operating costs, which means after 10 years, that's 20% of the fund is gone. So I have a $100 million fund. That means only 80% is left to actually invest through the whole life cycle of the fund. I probably want to deliver half of that in the early going. I might save some for some follow-on funding with the ones that win, maybe. Depends how I want to set that up. But I'm usually deploying, let's say if I'm not doing any follow-on funding, I will have deployed 80%, 75% of that original dry powder probably in the first 5 years because I know how long it takes to achieve some sort of liquidity event. Um, and then I know that 70% are going to die. One's going to probably return me a 1x, maybe a second one. But it's the third one. It's the 1 out of 10 that I really need to hit a home run. And why that needs to be a 10x? Because it needs to cover everybody else. I promise a 10x return to my investors. Every single investment I make has to have the potential to return that 10x because I already know most of them are going to die anyway. So the way you structured this conversation has to be pointed in that direction. You have to be showing and proving to them that there's enough room to run in this market, enough customers can be got and their money can be taken to the point where you can reasonably liquidify what you're doing to where that investor who's putting in money today, after dilution and everything they're going to go through, can make a 10x on that amount. And it's really not even that amount; it's on their entire fund. But just have some understanding of what the motivations and incentives are for the person on the other side of the table, right? The person that you're talking to, what do they have to go through? What is their job? What do they need to deliver? What were the promises that they made? The competitive landscape. This is just you flexing that you are the expert in the room, that you really do understand everything about this landscape. You know all the players, you know all the history, you know all the dirty laundry, you know all the pricing, you know how much similar companies in your industry raised at what stage based on what numbers and metrics were they able to raise money. All of the things. This is just really you showing off that you really are an expert in the space because you have to be. You have to be the resident expert in the room around all of this stuff, right? This is where you really, really get, this is your knockout punch, is kind of this slide, and really, really, really understanding and knowing the where and the why and the how of everybody and everything, not just today, but from 10 years ago to today. Because again, you're asking me to buy your vision of the future. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I respect your thesis on how we got here from then until now. If I respect it, I don't have to agree with it, but if I respect it, then at least we can continue to talk about the future, which is what you want because we're building a relationship. Go to market strategy. Again, these can be really difficult. People struggle with this a lot. Doesn't have to be right. Okay. It just has to be respectful. Okay. I just have to think it doesn't suck. I just have to think it's smart. It doesn't have to be right. It just has to be well thought out and has to be relatively smart. Also, you don't have to get overly creative with this. If you say, well, Airbnb is similar to us, and this is the way they went to market, and this was their go to market strategy. And so we're going to kind of follow the same path. I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, there's no point. Spend your time on other things. That makes sense. Yeah. Book recommendation number 3. So this is it. This is Venture Deals again. Brad Feld. I recommend everybody read this at least once, if not twice or 3 times. As you're going to raise money, this is very North America, right? This is very US based, so it doesn't, LATAM, EMEA, the other places. It's got some rings, some wrinkles that are going to be different, but for the most part, it's brilliant. You should all read it. This is going to give you all the education, most of the education that you need to understand venture capital. Last slide is traction. The one thing that I want to say here is because pre I don't know, pre users, pre revenue, traction can be hard to come up with. One thing I'll say here is that if you have made mistakes, the work that you've done, the trial and error, um, the false positives, the buggy products, all of that stuff is traction. Every mistake that you've learned from is incredible traction. And the reason I say that is because most investors now are leaning more towards capital efficiency, meaning they want to invest at the time when you are going to be raising the valuation of your company with their money. Not necessarily hiring engineers and not necessarily paying for mistakes. They want as much of that capital as possible driving valuation. So the more you talk about failed experiments, things you've learned, all that stuff, everything that you've done to date, investors love that because it is education that somebody else paid for that that they get to capitalize on. Okay. So don't be afraid to talk about all of the mistakes, all of the learnings, right? Because there is a rite of passage for every entrepreneur, for every company that will go through misunderstanding many things, and they have a lot of things that they need to learn and a lot of growing pains along the way. So the more of those you've already absorbed, the better, because that means more, hopefully more of my money can go into valuation improvement. The last thing on that, and I was going to bring this up a couple slides ago, was just talking about when you're raising money. If we get to the ask, um, something that I love is knowing when founders know that I have to present almost every 6 months to my LPs and give them a report of how everything is going. I promised that I was going to spend money and make money, and they want to know how that's going. Well, if you come to me and I, like, let's say you're raising $2 million um, at a no, you're raising $500,000 at a 2.5 post money valuation, meaning I give you $500,000, I get 20% of your company. Let's just say. Now, I only look good when you raise money again, right? When you close the next round of funding, that's when all the promises, hopes, and dreams of this round materialize. Okay. So if you then go raise $2 million at a 20 million post money valuation, and I've got 20%, slightly diluted, but let's just call it 20%. That means that my 500,000 is now on paper worth 4 million. So I just achieved an 800% increase in the equity on paper of the fund. My fund just went from having a $500,000 to a $4 million amount of money in it. And I look like a genius to my LPs. And that is not a bad way when you're asking for money and you're talking about what you're going to do with it, if you point the outcome of that investment at valuation improvement, not just all these numbers and customers you're going to acquire and how bad, you know, the product's going to improve and the team's going to grow and all these kind of things, that's great. But how does it improve the valuation of your company? And we can only prove that that valuation improvement is true once we raise another round of money and other people bet money on your company being worth that amount. And then we've proven it. And I can sit back and go, yes, my 500,000 is now worth 4 million. And it was proven because other people invested at that amount. Great. Okay. That's a great thing to put in your pitch if you can do that. Okay. That's it. That's all I've got. I don't know. Happy to take questions. Anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, awesome presentation. I was taking notes. Also, the cat pictures get my entire attention. So I think that's. Can you explain that to us? It's like, do you like cats, or that's something that you use it to get the attention of people?
It is. So light heart, light mood, light mind, right? It makes it easier, I think. You know, it's like learning when you're in a good mood versus learning when you're in a bad mood, right? And so along the way, I'm trying to keep it a little bit light. I'm giving visuals that are easy to digest, easy to understand, make us feel good, kind of laugh, funny, whatever. And it just eases the tension along the way. And it makes it a little bit more fun, again, to pay attention to. Everybody, even if you hate what I'm saying, you're always looking forward to the next cat picture to see what's going to come up next, right? So I've got your attention and I'm keeping your attention the entire way through.
Cool. So another question. In I don't know if let's say USA or the more mature venture capitals industry went through before, but in Latin America, it's a growing thing, right? It's not as mature as you guys, but I think like you went through a phase in which venture capitalists and people in which at which you pitch your business are like shark tanks, right? They are like really rude, and they actually make you feel, let's say, bad during your presentation. Do you have any advice for us? Because that's something that is not that common anymore in Latin America, but it's like something we are going through in the latest phase of that, right? Do you have any recommendation for us to avoid that or handle that situation?
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, especially growing up in China, and I was a part of watching an entire country or ecosystem grow up, you know, in learning how to invest, right? VC in the, you know, back 2010 was kind of non-existent. It was just very rich people that were finding things and then like they would hide them from everybody else. And there was a lot of games, a lot of I lost companies because VCs invested in them, but then killed their company because they wanted the people, not the company, and they wanted to put the people in a different company that they'd invested in. So they were actually just acquiring the talent through a false investment. A lot of things like this, right? Yeah, the feedback. So it's data. Okay, it's data, and um, it's just one person's opinion, and one person doesn't matter. Data only counts in aggregate. Okay, so one person saying something means absolutely nothing. Now, if stuff I said resonates with you today, great. Think about it. Think how you'd like to deal with it in small or, you know, in large, whatever you want to do. And then go and let that, you know, absorb into what you're doing, what you're building, what you're presenting, so on. But, you know, for pitch feedback, open your mind. First of all, don't be in a defensive mindset ever. Okay. You don't need to prove yourself to anybody in a way, right? Like anybody who is questioning you about some things or whatever, if people say, well, I didn't understand this and I didn't get that, and when you presented this, I was thinking about all these other things. You're just like, okay, cool. Thank you. Right? Like, don't care. You don't need to defend at all. Plus, if your brain is in a defensive mode as they're talking about the things they didn't get, you're going to be creating your defense and what you're going to say to convince them that they don't do that. Don't do that. You're wasting brain resources on a defense that doesn't matter to an audience that doesn't matter. Just absorb. Your brain should be doing nothing but note taking, going back into your pitch and going, maybe I should rework that slide. Because if I'm saying that and they're thinking this, and I don't want them thinking that, I want them over here, maybe I should think about saying that a different way. And then at the end of their rant or whatever they're saying, you just go, thank you. I appreciate that. And you go away with tons of notes and interesting things, but you don't need to defend anything. If they ask you a direct question, fine. Give them a tiny little answer, because their opinion, unless you're really on stage, battling for $100,000 or something, and it really does matter. That's a totally different scenario. But generally speaking, you don't have to impress one person. You just need to take the data, right, and understand it's all data.
Sure. It's like listen to understand than listen to reply, right? It's like, but how we can, because I told you like that at the beginning, we are like we are interested in impact driven founders and startups, right? So all the businesses actually came alive, not being a business. It's like solving a really life that things that we are actually facing us or in our direct family or friends, right? And then we actually figured it out that this is a worldwide problem, and then turn into a business. And most of our founders, and that's why the main reason of this program is they, after that step, they find out the startup world and business and jargon and all kind of stuff, right? It's not like, oh, I know that startup is a way of make businesses and I'm trying to find an idea to play that game. It's actually, I facing a problem, I solve the problem for myself or my direct family or circle. And then actually I discovered this thing called startup world and busy world, and trying to figure out how to convert this problem into a business, right? So my point is, most of us are very passionate about our business slash solution, right? Or actually the problem that we are facing, it's directly in turning our emotions, right? So being emotion unattached when you give your pitch is something that is a little more difficult um, for purpose founders, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for that? How we can manage that in a better way in order to give or receive this feedback from these people and improve our pitches on or
Yeah.
stories?
Well, like it's where does your passion lie, and the almost the perspective lens of the passion. So I'll get into a room to mentor a company. Say I don't know anything about them. I'm doing like a mentor madness, and I'm just one after the other are coming in. And um, I pull a little trick. I find a way at the very beginning, before the meeting has officially started, and I will just kind of casually see if I can get them to tip their hat, like give me a clue as to who they're going to be. And I'll be like, so what are you guys all about? Something's like, I don't ask, what do you do? What is your company? I just like very, very kind of like, what are you guys all about? Like, kind of like, what gets you up in the morning, right? Something simple like that. And they do one of two things, and it tells me which way this is going to. They either start telling me about a problem that exists, or like, have you ever, or I grew up on this something and whatever. They go down that path, which is amazing. I love that. Or they go, well, we've built the world's first something that is super innovative and is going to disrupt the blah, 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 and, and we go down this road, and it's like, brutal. This is now we're dealing with people who are obsessed with their own ego, their own idea, their own thing, right? So have tons of passion. But what are you passionate about? Are you passionate about the solution? Are you passionate about what you built because you think you're such a smarty pants that you've made something everybody's going to want? You're the next Steve Jobs? Or are you passionate about solving a problem and you are now under control because you know that you have to be? You're so passionate that you understand the big picture, how long it's going to take, and that you have to perform as a leader, as to attract people to go with you, as somebody who is stable to give money to, who knows how to direct and use those funds in a very efficient way, and to the market, who really does understand what it takes. If you want to solve a problem, you have to be able to be big enough and relevant enough and usable and get to people. And that takes a lot of different, it has nothing to do with being profitable. You still have to figure out how you're going to get there. So you have to be an entity that is under control, 100% passionate, never going to give up. This is what I'm going to do until I die, because it is just means everything to me. And you can tell a story about how and why it means everything to you. But if you do that, it's like it's like almost dangerous, but undercooked. Like, anybody who studied martial arts understands that you study martial arts and you're the most dangerous person in the room, but you are always completely under control, right? It is about getting to that black belt part of being passionate. You have the capacity for danger, but you also have a matched capacity for control, so that you will never ever have to use it as well. And you are kind of brimming, but never go overflowing with the passion.
Love that. We have the two last questions. Do you have 10
Oh
minutes?
yeah,
We are
I
okay.
got all kinds of time. Really,
Okay, cool.
it's not
Okay,
even
that's
8 o'clock. Oh, it's just after 8 o'clock in the morning up here.
that's cool. So, Joshua said, as you said, we need a vision in 3-5 years, but how about this? Is not enough data to create that vision. What data we have to show to TPCs? What if we are starting the solution and we don't have enough data to show and back up our 3-5 year vision?
Hmm. Well, so this would indicate a certain stage, right? So this seems like early stage. Um, so, first of all, the vision doesn't have to be based on what you've collected. You're generally going to start, like, even convincing yourself. There's nobody who's investing in this more than you are, ever. Your time of life is more important than anybody's money, right? So you should have gone through the exercise of even needing to convince yourself whether you should drop everything and do this more than anybody else should have. But it's the 10 years ago to now. And then, because if you put a data point somewhere and you say, okay, where's the future? Well, you could go in any direction from a single data point. But if I give you a data point of now, but then I also give you a data point of before, well, guess what? Now we can draw a line, and now we're relatively sure that it's going to be out in this direction. That's all we're trying to prove, right? We're just, and it just has to be smart. It doesn't have to be right. Nobody expects you to be right, but it has to be smart. It has to be thought out. You have to really kind of understand where we were, where we are. So this, AKA, where we're going, right? And that's all you have until you have something. Until you have that experiment. Until you have that data collection machine running that you're just gathering, and then now as the data collects. But this is like, I've seen people, just like when I was in China, we used WeChat. And it was brilliant. People would load up a room, right? You're like, problem, problem, problem. If you care about this problem, if this problem matters to you, come join our group, because we're all going to go in there and we're going to cry about our problem. We're going to do it all together. It's a big complaining bucket, and everybody goes complains in there, and it's great because then I'm going to start throwing in like articles and news and things, and what do you guys all think? And the velocity of the complaining just spins up even faster, and people are writing and writing and writing, and all I'm doing is measuring. I am measuring this and this, and then as the group grows, I'll be like, well, if we had something like this, would people use it? And then, again, lean startup, validate through currency, right? Well, could I get you guys to do a focus group for an hour on Saturday at this kind of thing, whatever. Now they're giving up their time. Holy cow, they must really actually care. They're willing to pay an hour of their time to come and see if we can get a solution to this problem, whatever. And you get them to all show up, right? And you do this whole thing. Or I'm going to create a white paper, but I'm going to put like a $2 paywall in front of it and see how many people actually pay for that. And then you do the validation. Now we're creating the data collection machines. Now we're starting to prove that people would be willing to pay for a solution. And now we just have to work on the solution and how much it's worth and who's paying for it and understand them. And then we just go, right? And now we're going.
That was brilliant. I mean, I like it. Miguel Berrios said, what are the red flags to identify a VC that is not our right fit?
So first, trust your gut. Trust your gut. I know it's hard. People think I'm too young, I'm unaccomplished. They're accomplished. They're a VC. I'm a nobody. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. I mean, it's just like dating. It's just like dating, right? There's a lot of, bad VC red flags. I could tell you a bunch. They're out there. I think it's so worthwhile Googling, honestly. It's really worthwhile going and looking up. A buddy of mine from 8 Securities, Mikhail Abdullah, wrote something a few years ago. I saw it on LinkedIn. It was interesting. After 10 years of dealing with VCs, he came out and blasted them all, and it was like bad VCs. That was like the title of his blog. Of just trying to manipulate. Listen. VCs like I said, most VC venture capital funds are set up on a 10-year timeline, right? If they're in year 8, you bet your bottom dollar they are pushing for exits. All right, your incentives and their incentives are going to be going like this, right? And they're going to want you to exit. Why? Because they don't get paid after year 10, but they have a responsibility to clean up and close off all the fund and all the portfolio companies and end that, so that they can move on with their life, because they no longer get paid after that 10th year. So and plus that's when their promises come due. I think VCs, listen, if you're trying to save the world, they should be too. They are going to be trying to make money. It depends where their money came from. I mean, I don't want to paint everybody with the same broad brush, but you'll get a feeling if you guys are on the same page, and if they're willing to support you, if they're willing to open their network to get involved. If just think of it like somebody you're going to marry, right? The same morals and ethics, and see the world the same way. Not only just like the same things, but dislike the same things, right? I think, like, if it was in America, if you were a big Joe Biden person and they were a big Trump person, probably not a good fit. Essentially, you're going to be divided on some other things for sure. So, that's a tough question. But just listen, trust your gut. And if it just starts to go sideways, well, then recognize it. I just think too much power always lies with the VCs, and entrepreneurs don't take enough control of the conversations and direction of the relationship.
Yeah, that's totally true. Let's say so for ending the workshop, let me say that it was incredible. A lot of insights. I took notes as well. So thank for your time. Do you have any words for us to end this workshop, and about Agora as well?
Yeah. So I love the book on Ivan's Desk. It All Starts with Why by Simon Sinek. I think that's also an excellent book. in the early stages, like my advice, my overall advice when you're presenting is never stop at what. Always finish with why. Okay? It's not like, because I'm trying to understand this person in front of me. Do I want to go on a date? Do I want to be locked in a room for a year? Do I, want to be in a jail cell with this person? If I get to choose, I want to choose very carefully. So, um, I want to, I want to know that they're smart. I want to respect the way they see the world, the way they see this industry, the way they see building a company. I don't have to agree. No investor has to agree. The one thing about investors is that they're always just data driven. We're all wrong. We've always been wrong. I just need to respect your process and know that neither of us are getting caught up in opinions, and we are only acting upon data. Um, Meaning, I don't care what your go-to-market strategy is. I care why you're choosing that one. I don't care what you've built. I care why you built it that way now, right? I don't care what your pricing is. I care why you chose that amount. I'm just looking to know that the things you do, the people in your team, the product you're building, there's rhyme and reason, that you're not, you know, that you're not just jumping blindly into doing things, that you're smart, you're careful, you're thoughtful, and you do things with intent, but that are backed by science and data, and you know that even if you're taking risks, it's about collecting more data, right? That's really what we're about. So never, just all throughout your presentation, it's not what, it's why, because that's what tells me how you think. What is just stuff anybody can Google. But why, that takes some intuitiveness, that takes some calculation, that your brain has done. And I'm trying to see your brain. I'm trying to understand your brain and your personality. That's mostly what I'm trying to get out of this. Lastly, Agora. Yeah, I mean, we have a startup program. Right now, we're offering 1,000,000 minutes to all startups, or 1,000,000 minutes or 12 months, whichever comes first. Um, Obviously, it depends, but if anybody has or is planning to build any real-time chat, real-time voice, real-time video, we're the best technology, lowest latency, best performance in the world. Not necessarily the cheapest, but you will always get the best performance from anything. If you're live streaming from your app, to like, anybody who's tried to live stream from Zoom to Facebook knows there's a 5-second delay, right? We'll give you a 500 millisecond delay. So it's 10 times better and faster. So yeah, if you want, email me or go to agora.io/startups, fill out the form, which is what I'm going to make everybody do anyway. And we'll have a conversation, and I can onboard you, get you 1,000,000 free minutes, and a bunch of other stuff to get you going.
Awesome. And last question, where we can find you or someone?
Hit me up on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Honestly, hit me up on LinkedIn. I think it's everywhere. Obviously Facebook is a pain and a totally different platform, but LinkedIn, yeah, hit me on LinkedIn. I respond to all my messages there. We can chat there. I can get you loaded in. We can get things set up. Absolutely. Just, yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Just search my name. It seems like such a common name, Todd Embley. But I'm if you Google me, I'm like the entire first page somehow. So
nice. Todd, again, thank you so much for your time. We want to be respectful for your time, and I'm gonna send you the video of this workshop. Maybe cool. Because I took and I see some different insights, very valuable insights. Probably we're gonna split those little videos and share in our network as well. So I'm gonna send it to you too, asking for your permission first. That's obviously. No but again, we would like to having you again in the program very soon. So thank you so much for being in our network, for giving us your time, and saying that. I hope to see you in the near future very soon.
Good luck, everybody. Being being an entrepreneur, doing a startup, it is one of the most difficult things to do in the world. I know I think every entrepreneur in the world gets up every morning and the first thing they think is this what I'm supposed to be doing with my life today? You know, um, it's a tough world out there. Our parents don't understand. It's tough to get a mortgage from the bank. You can't get health insurance. You sometimes can't even get a date if you're an entrepreneur because that just means you have no money. So I respect deeply, deeply respect all of you. I am a servant to the Church of Startup, and if there's anything I can do for any of you, it was an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Ivan.
Okay, Todd. Thank you so much. Bye bye, guys.